stand before you tonight, I feel the air of mystery that always lingers when we gather to speak of the unconscious, for the unconscious is not a polite guest who enters through the front door. It is a restless spirit that seeps through the cracks of your life, through the dreams you have forgotten, through the strange impulses that disturb your ordinary days. And yet, it is within this hidden domain that the truth you seek resides, the most dangerous sign in psychology, the one that may ruin you if left unseen, is not found in the pages of books or the neat diagrams of academic theories. It is something older, something primordial, a truth that has lived in the shadow of humanity since the dawn of consciousness. If you have the courage to recognize it, it can save you, but if you deny it, it may consume you. We live in an age of dazzling surfaces. Men and women present to the world a persona, a mask polished for approval, a mask that whispers, "This is who I am." But behind every mask, there is another face, one you fear to acknowledge. This hidden face is the shadow. It is the gathering of everything you do not wish to be, everything society condemns, everything you have repressed in the name of survival. And yet, paradoxically, the shadow is not only darkness, it is also energy, vitality, creative fire. To deny it is to deny half of yourself. And so, the most dangerous sign in psychology, the warning that your soul is in peril, is when you begin to believe the mask is your entire being. When you mistake the persona for the self, you are already lost. You have betrayed the deeper truth that lives beneath. Think of it like this. In a dream, you may find yourself pursued by a figure you cannot quite recognize. Perhaps it is a dark stranger, perhaps a wild animal, perhaps a grotesque double of yourself. You awaken disturbed, sweating, with the question still pressing on your chest. What was that? It was your shadow, knocking on the doors of your consciousness, demanding that you look at what you have refused to see. The dream is not your enemy. It is the herald of truth. But if you dismiss it, if you laugh at it, if you continue to say, "I am only who I appear to be," then the shadow grows restless. And sooner or later, it will break through in destructive forms through addiction, obsession, cruelty, or despair. This is the danger. I once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This statement is no philosophical ornament. It is a living law of the psyche. How many men have destroyed themselves because they never dared to look at the hunger that drove them? How many women have lived in silent torment because they mistook suffering for love? Because they could not see that the patterns repeating in their lives were not accidents, but the voice of their own unacknowledged wounds. This is not theory. This is what I have seen in the eyes of countless patients, in the confessions of souls tormented by a truth they could not name. You may ask, but what is the sign? Karl, the most dangerous sign you speak of, it is this. When a person speaks in absolutes about themselves, when they declare with certainty, "I am only good, I am only righteous, I am only kind," beware, for the brighter the light they show, the darker the shadow they hide. The unconscious compensates. Always, the psyche seeks balance. If you present only purity to the world, the dirt you conceal will rot in secret, and one day it will erupt The holiest priest who refuses to admit his desires becomes the most dangerous hypocrite. The devoted spouse who insists she is incapable of anger becomes the one who lashes out in secret cruelty. The politician who speaks endlessly of morality becomes the one who hides corruption in the basement of his soul. When a man insists too much that he is free of the shadow has already possessed him. That is the most dangerous sign. I do not tell you this to frighten you, but to awaken you. You see, within each of you there is a battlefield. On one side stands the persona, shining in the armor of social approval. On the other side waits the shadow, dark, silent, carrying the forgotten weapons of your soul. If you refuse to acknowledge the battle, you will be ambushed. But if you turn toward it, if you say, "Yes, I see you, you are mine," then something miraculous occurs. The shadow begins to yield its power, not in the form of destruction, but as creativity, passion, strength. That which once threatened to devour you now becomes your ally. To integrate the shadow is to reclaim the gold hidden in darkness, but the sign that you have not done this, the sign that you are in danger, is when you cling desperately to your image, refusing to hear the whispers in your own blood. Consider the myths. The Greek hero Theseus could not become whole without facing the Minotaur in the labyrinth. In truth, the Minotaur is nothing but the shadow, the beast born of secrecy, locked away in darkness, waiting to be confronted. Every culture has told the story in its own tongue. The dragon to be slain, the demon to be exorcised, the night sea journey to be endured. But in our modern world, we have grown clever in denying these myths. We say, "I am rational, I am civilized, I do not believe in monsters," and so the monsters appear in another form. They come as wars, as tyrannies, as the hidden cruelty of ordinary men. Do you not see that the horrors of the 20th century, the camps, the massacres, the blind obedience to ideology, were nothing but the collective shadow of civilization, erupting because we refused to recognize it? What is true for the individual is true for the collective. Denied shadow becomes fate. Perhaps you will say, "But how can I recognize this sign in myself? I do not claim to be only good. I know I have faults." Yes, but the shadow is subtle. It is not content with the faults you are willing to admit. It hides in the places you least wish to look. It may take the form of projection. You see in another the qualities you cannot bear to acknowledge in yourself. The man who despises liars often lies to himself daily. The woman who condemns vanity cannot see how much she yearns for admiration. The one who calls others selfish may in truth be consumed by his own hidden greed. Projection is the disguise of the shadow. It allows you to remain ignorant while condemning others. And so, when you notice in yourself a violent dislike, an exaggerated reaction to another person's behavior, pause, ask yourself, is this not also mine? Am I not looking into the mirror of my own disowned nature? That moment of recognition is painful. Yes, but it is also the beginning of liberation. To deny it is dangerous. To accept it is saving. Dreams, too, are faithful messengers. In them, the shadow appears clothed in many forms. You may dream of a thief, a murderer, a seducer, a wild animal, these are not random images. They are revelations of what you have not admitted. I recall a man who dreamed repeatedly of being pursued by a black dog. He was terrified. Yet, when he dared to face the dream, he discovered that the dog was his own instinctual vitality. His passion for life, which he had repressed in order to appear respectable, once he acknowledged it, the dog ceased to chase him and became his companion. Do you see? The dangerous sign was his refusal to recognize the dog. The saving truth was his courage to welcome it. I must tell you something more unsettling. The shadow is not always evil. It can contain virtues neglected, talents unused, truths silenced. A man raised to be strong and domineering may find in his shadow the gentleness he never allowed himself to express. A woman taught to be selfless may find in her shadow the fierce independence she suppressed. The sign of danger comes not because the shadow is evil, but because it is denied. The psyche does not tolerate denial. What is repressed will find its way out, whether through sickness, neurosis, or catastrophe. But if you make a place for it, if you listen, then what was once dangerous becomes healing. The one truth that could save you is simply this: you are not only who you think you are more. You are light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, human and divine. The moment you grasp this, you begin the work of wholeness. The self, that great archetype which transcends the ego, does not seek your perfection in one-sided light, but your integration of all opposites. It is not sainthood that saves you, but wholeness. The dangerous sign is forgetting this. The saving truth is remembering it with every breath. When I speak of the shadow, too many imagine it only as darkness, as though within you there lurks merely the savage beast, the criminal impulse, the shameful hunger. But the truth is far more paradoxical. The shadow is not only the collection of your sins, but also the treasure you have buried. It is the unwanted gold, the rejected light. The most dangerous sign is not the mere presence of darkness in your soul. That is natural and inevitable. The true danger lies in your unwillingness to see the totality. You select, you curate, you polish an image, and in doing so, you betray the wholeness of your being. This betrayal creates a tension so unbearable that eventually life itself will conspire to shatter your illusion. I have seen patients who came to me on the brink of collapse. Outwardly, they were respectable, accomplished, praised by their communities. Inwardly, they were haunted by inexplicable fears, compulsions, nightmares. They could not understand why, after doing everything right, they felt devoured by emptiness. But it was clear they had lived only for the persona, the social mask, and they had buried their shadow so deep that it began to rise up in grotesque forms. The psyche, you see, does not tolerate one-sidedness. It insists on balance when light goes too bright. Darkness intensifies in equal measure. To ignore this law is the most dangerous mistake a human being can make. Look closely at your own life. When do you find yourself most disturbed by others? Is it when they lie, when they boast, when they fall into weakness? And yet, if you're honest, can you not recall moments when you yourself have lied, have boasted, have collapsed in weakness. What infuriates you most in others is very often what you secretly repress in yourself. This is why hatred is such a revealing sign. The man who hates others with unrelenting passion has not yet recognized himself. Hatred is the shadow projected outward, a mirror you cannot bear to face. And here lies the saving truth. When you have the courage to withdraw the projection, to say, this too is in me, you reclaim your soul. Without this step, you remain enslaved by illusions. The unconscious speaks in symbols. It will never approach you directly, for the language of the depths is older than logic, older than words. It speaks in dreams, in visions, in synchronicities. A woman dreams of drowning in a flood, her house collapsing into the waters. What is this flood? It is the rising tide of unconscious contents demanding recognition. If she ignores it, if she says it was only a dream, then the flood may soon manifest as depression, as illness, as catastrophe in waking life. But if she contemplates it, if she asks, what part of me have I left unattended? What truth is surging from below? Then she begins to find meaning. The dream becomes guidance, not doom. The dangerous sign is when you dismiss your dreams, when you say they are nothing but random fragments. To the psyche, there is no randomness. Everything is revelation. If you have eyes to see, there is another danger, identification with a collective. In our time, it is common to see masses swept up in ideology, each person declaring with certainty that their cause is just, their beliefs absolute, their enemies evil. But when you see such conviction, be wary. It is the mask of the collective shadow. Those who scream most loudly about righteousness are often those most possessed by the darkness they deny. The 20th century proved this with horrifying clarity. Entire nations became unconscious, drunk with the projection of their own evil onto others. The result was slaughter. Do you not see that the same dynamic lives within each individual? If you cannot face your own shadow, you will cast it upon your neighbor, your partner, your rival. You will make them the scapegoat for what you refuse to see in yourself. This is why I say the most dangerous sign is certainty without reflection, goodness proclaimed without humility. Let me give you an image. Imagine a man standing in a vast cathedral at night. He lights a single candle and stares only at the flame. He says, "Here is the truth. Here is the whole of reality." But all around him, the shadows deepen. The great arches of the cathedral vanish into darkness. The candle has blinded him. He does not know that beyond the flame lies a space filled with mysteries, with unseen forms, with a whisper of eternity. His insistence that the flame is everything makes him blind. This is how the persona works. You cling to one light and forget the cathedral. The danger sign is this narrowing of vision, this refusal to admit the vastness that surrounds you, and yet the saving truth is also close at hand. It is that every confrontation with a shadow is an invitation to grow. When you notice the dangerous sign in yourself, that rigidity, that overconfidence, that hatred, that dismissal of your dreams, you can stop, you can breathe, you can turn inward and ask, what have I refused to see? What part of my humanity have I locked away? To ask this sincerely is already to begin the work of individuation. Individuation is not the pursuit of perfection, but the journey toward wholeness. It is the process of reconciling opposites, of allowing the darkness and the light to coexist, of listening to the whisper of the self, which seeks to unite all parts of you. The self is the great archetype, the center that embraces opposites. It is larger than your ego, larger than the persona, larger even than the shadow. It is the hidden God within you. The shadow is dangerous when it is denied, but when it is embraced, it becomes a servant of the self, guiding you toward wholeness. This is the paradox. The very thing that threatens to destroy you can also save you. The blackness of night reveals the stars. The terror of the dream reveals the path. The flaw you hide becomes the doorway to transformation. Let me tell you of a patient who dreamed of being locked in a dungeon. Each night, he descended into darkness, heard the clanging of chains, felt the weight of despair. He came to me desperate, saying he could not endure it. I told him, do not flee, go deeper into the dungeon, look at what is chained. The next time he dreamed, he forced himself to approach the prisoner, and to his astonishment, he found it was himself young, wounded, terrified. The chained figure was his own forgotten childhood, his own pain, denied. When he embraced the prisoner, the chains dissolved, and for the first time in years, he felt joy. Do you see? The dangerous sign was his refusal to face the dungeon. The saving truth was his willingness to enter. The most dangerous sign is not rage or lust or envy in themselves. These are natural. The danger comes when you say, this is not mine. I have nothing to do with it. That lie creates division within the soul. You become a battlefield of warring forces. But when you admit, yes, I know envy, I know lust, I know rage, then you begin to weave them into your humanity. They no longer control you from the shadows. They become part of your tapestry, and the tapestry in its totality is beautiful. Never forget that the unconscious is not evil. It is nature, and nature is both destructive and creative. The storm can destroy a village, but it also waters the earth. The fire can burn, but it also gives warmth. The unconscious is the same. It is dangerous only when you live as though it does not exist. To live consciously is to stand between opposites, to feel the tension, to endure the paradox, and to trust that through this tension the self will emerge. So I say to you again, the most dangerous psychological sign is when you cling only to one side of yourself, when you pretend to be whole by denying half your being. The truth that can save you is wholeness, the courage to embrace the shadow, to see the image in the mirror and not look away. In this lies redemption. In this lies the path to meaning. When you stand before the mirror of your own soul, you will notice that the shadow is not a single figure, not a simple presence, but a multitude. It shifts, it disguises itself, it plays roles in your life that you may not recognize until you have suffered them. At times, it is the wounded child crying out for love in ways that disrupt your relationships. At other times, it is the trickster luring you into deceptions that humiliate you. And sometimes it is the warrior, violent and merciless, demanding destruction where you longed for peace. To ignore this multiplicity is dangerous, for the shadow, if it is denied, will seize control of your destiny, and you will think you are making choices freely, when in truth you are being pulled by invisible strings. The most dangerous sign is not outward misfortune, not even the collapse of worldly success, but the inner blindness that makes you say, "This is not me." The moment you say those words with certainty, the unconscious smiles, for it knows that whatever you reject with such vehemence belongs to you more deeply than you dare admit. This is why the shadow appears so often in dreams as a double, your twin, your rival, your enemy. It is you, closed in a form you cannot yet embrace. The more you fight it, the more it grows. The more you deny it, the more it haunts you. And if you go too long without facing it, life will arrange circumstances that force you into the confrontation, an illness, a betrayal, a loss. These are often the shadow's hand, tearing down the walls you built against it. The ancient myths intuited this long before psychology had words for it. In the old stories, the hero must always descend into the underworld, into the cave, into the night. He must face a dragon, the serpent, the devouring beast. These images are not arbitrary. They are the eternal patterns of the psyche, what I called archetypes. The dragon is the shadow itself, hoarding the treasure of your unlived life. The descent into the underworld is the journey into the unconscious. The hero's task is not to kill the dragon, as though one could annihilate the shadow, but to confront it, to endure its terror, and to claim the treasure it guards. If you look at your own life honestly, you will see that your greatest growth has always come from your darkest trials. The dangerous sign is not that you suffer, but that you flee suffering without learning from it. I recall a woman who dreamed repeatedly of a black serpent coiled at the foot of her bed. She was terrified. She wanted me to tell her how to banish it. But I told her, instead, approach it, speak to it, ask it why it has come. In time, she did in her dream, she finally dared to speak. And the serpent lifted its head and said, "I am your power." Long denied, she awoke trembling, but changed. The serpent no longer haunted her. She began to live with more vitality, more courage, more authenticity. The shadow, once faced, had become her ally. The saving truth is always hidden in the form that frightens you most. But here's the paradox. Just as the individual carries a shadow, so does humanity as a whole. This is the collective shadow, and it is far more dangerous, for it does not reveal itself in dreams alone, but in history, in politics, in the movements of entire nations. When a society proclaims itself pure, moral, righteous beyond question, beware, that society is on the edge of catastrophe. The atrocities of the last century were not committed by monsters from another world. They were committed by ordinary men and women possessed by the collective shadow. They projected their darkness onto scapegoats, onto the other, and in doing so, unleashed horrors that defy comprehension. The most dangerous sign for civilization is the same as for the individual: certainty of innocence, blindness to one's own darkness. Do you see now why I speak with such urgency? What you refuse to face within yourself will erupt outward. If you deny your aggression, it may become the violence of the mob. If you deny your envy, it may become the cruelty of your community. If you deny your hunger for power, it may become the tyranny of the state. The unconscious compensates not only in the individual, but in the collective. And so, to integrate your shadow is not only a personal task, but a moral one. Each person who takes responsibility for their darkness lessens the danger of collective madness. Each person who embraces wholeness contributes to the healing of humanity. Now you may ask, how do I begin? How can I face this shadow without being consumed by it? The answer is not simple, but it begins with honesty, to sit in silence and admit, I am not only what I wish to be, I am also what I fear to be. This admission is an act of courage. It may come through self-reflection, through therapy, through dream analysis, through creative work. When you paint, write, dance, or allow the unconscious to express itself, you give the shadow a voice. It no longer needs to ambush you from behind. When you listen to your dreams, you allow the hidden parts of yourself to speak. When you withdraw your projections and confess, what I condemn in you, I also find in myself, you begin to dissolve the illusions that keep you trapped. Do not imagine that this path is without pain. To see your own darkness is to be wounded in your pride. It shatters the image you have carefully constructed. It humiliates the ego. But humiliation is not destruction. It is initiation. Every initiation into greater wholeness begins with the breaking of the old identity. The shell must crack for the bird to be born. The ego must be humbled for the self to emerge. And so, when you notice the dangerous sign in yourself, when you catch yourself declaring too strongly your innocence, or condemning others too fiercely, or fleeing your dreams too quickly, pause, for it may be the threshold of transformation. I tell you this as one who has walked the same path. I was not spared the shadow. I too dreamed of terrifying figures, of floods, of serpents, of dead gods and newborn sons. I too resisted. I too trembled. But I discovered that what threatened to annihilate me was in fact guiding me to the deepest truths of the psyche. Out of confrontation with the shadow emerged my understanding of the self, of individuation, of the archetypal journey that every human must undertake. I am not special in this. What I lived, you will live in your own way. The patterns are universal. The only question is whether you will recognize them. Do not wait for catastrophe to awaken you. The psyche will send warnings, subtler first, then louder, a disturbing dream, a conflict in a relationship, an unexpected illness. These are signals. To ignore them is to walk toward disaster. To heed them is to step onto the path of individuation. The saving truth is that you are guided always by something within you that knows more than your ego. The self is not far away. It is hidden in your very depths, calling to you through the shadow, through the dream, through the symbol. To answer this call is to live. To refuse it is the most dangerous sign of all. And so I say again, the shadow is not your enemy. It is your task. It is the dragon that guards the treasure of your soul. It is the darkness that makes the light visible. It is a wound that carries the seed of healing. To embrace it is to enter into the mystery of wholeness. Where opposites unite, where life finds meaning, the dangerous sign is denial. The saving truth is acceptance. This is the law of the psyche. This is the path every soul must walk. When I speak to you of wholeness, I do not mean comfort. Wholeness is not a tranquil pond, reflecting only the sky. Wholeness is the ocean, with storms and calms, with depths unfathomable and creatures both terrifying and beautiful. To live a whole life is to allow yourself to be tossed upon those waters, to endure the storms without fleeing to the illusion of shallow pools. The ego craves safety, but the soul craves truth. And truth, my friends, is never safe. It will wound you, strip you, unsettle every certainty you hold. Yet in that stripping lies freedom, for when nothing false remains, what is left is indestructible. The dangerous sign is when you cling to safety, when you prefer the shallow pool of appearances, when you say, I know who I am, I have no darkness, I need no journey. That is the sleep of the soul. It is the stagnation that breeds decay. The saving truth is the willingness to descend, to be swallowed by uncertainty, to confront the archetypal depths, for within the unconscious lies not only shadow, but the images of gods and goddesses, the ancient patterns that shape your destiny, the anima, the animus, the wise old man in the Great Mother. These are not fantasies, but eternal realities of the psyche. When you deny them, you become their puppet. When you acknowledge them, they become your teachers. I once dreamed of a vast cave beneath the earth, filled with images carved into stone gods with wings, animals with human faces, suns and moons intertwined. I understood then that the human soul carries all the myths of humanity within it. You do not escape these myths by becoming modern or rational. You live them unconsciously, unless you choose to live them consciously. The most dangerous sign is unconscious myth, for then you do not know what gods you serve, what archetypes you embody. You are possessed and you call it choice, but when you see the myth, when you recognize the archetype moving through you, then you can live it with awareness, and it no longer devours you. The process of individuation is nothing less than this awakening to the archetypal drama of your own life. You are not merely an individual ego scrambling for survival in a meaningless universe. You are a participant in the eternal play of the psyche, a bearer of symbols, a vessel for the self. The self is a divine image in the soul, the totality of all opposites, the center beyond the ego. It calls you toward wholeness. It sends you dreams, visions, synchronicities. It guides you through suffering and joy. It uses even the shadow as its messenger. The dangerous sign is when you ignore this call, when you cling only to the ego's small ambitions, when you silence the voice of the self, for then life becomes empty, hollow, destructive. The saving truth is to answer the call to walk the path of individuation, to surrender to the mystery of the self. Do you not feel, even now, that you are more than you appear, that behind your daily tasks, behind your fears and desires, There is something vast moving, a pattern, a rhythm, a secret intelligence guiding you. This is the self. It is not yours alone. It is in all beings. It is the source of symbols, the wellspring of meaning. To live without it is to wander in a wasteland. To live with it is to walk in a sacred story. The shadow is the threshold to this story. That is why it is dangerous to deny it. For if you refuse the threshold, you refuse the journey. Let me offer you a final image. Imagine you are standing at the entrance of a forest at night. Behind you lies the village, safe, familiar, filled with the voices of people who know your name. Before you leave darkness, the unknown, the whisper of trees, the eyes of unseen creatures, the villagers tell you, stay with us, do not enter, the forest will devour you. But something in your heart knows that the forest is your destiny. You take one step, then another. The shadows close around you. You hear your own heartbeat echo in the silence. Fear grips you, and yet, in that fear, something awakens. You begin to see faint lights among the trees, symbols carved into the bark, voices older than human memory. You realize that the forest is alive with meaning, that it is not emptiness, but fullness. And when you walk far enough, you find a clearing where the moon illuminates everything. And you understand that you are not lost, you are found. This is individuation. This is the path of wholeness. The dangerous sign is when you turn back, when you cling to the village of appearances, when you refuse the forest. The saving truth is when you walk on trembling but faithful into the mystery. And so I urge you, do not fear your shadow. Do not fear the dreams that disturb you, the emotions that unsettle you, the symbols that haunt you. They are your guides. They are the language of the self. If you deny them, you fall into fate. If you embrace them, you step into freedom. Wholeness is not the absence of conflict. It is the embrace of conflict within a larger unity. You will always be torn between light and dark, love and hate, life and death. But when you know that both belong to the self, that both are necessary for the fullness of being, then you no longer fear the tension. You carry it as a cross of your humanity. And in carrying it, you discover meaning. The self is crucifixion and resurrection at once. It is the eternal pattern of death and rebirth lived in the depths of the psyche. To live this consciously is salvation. To live it unconsciously is destruction. So I leave you with this truth. The most dangerous psychological sign is the refusal of your shadow, the certainty of your own innocence, the clinging to the mask of persona. And the one truth that can save you is that you are whole, that you are light and dark, conscious and unconscious, human and divine. To embrace this paradox is to live. To refuse it is to die before your time. May you have the courage to enter the forest, to face the serpent, to embrace the prisoner in the dungeon, to see the double in your dream. May you learn to say, yes, this too is me. And in that yes, may you discover the self, the center that holds, the mystery that saves, the eternal wholeness that is your birthright. For only in wholeness will you be healed. Only in wholeness will you be free